I was a man among men, yet from my earliest breath the weight of eternity pressed upon my soul. Others tilled the ground, built homes and raised children, their eyes fixed upon the dust of the earth. But within me burned a fire I could not extinguish. The heavens seemed closer than the ground beneath my feet, and whispers of eternity stirred in the silence of my nights. It was not I who sought them. It was they who sought me. For the Eternal had chosen me, though I knew it not at the time, to become a vessel of mysteries hidden since the dawn of creation. One evening, as the sun fell like blood upon the horizon, the veil between earth and heaven was torn before my eyes. The air trembled with a presence greater than thunder, and I heard my name spoken, not as mortals speak, but as a sound that shakes the marrow of the bones. "Enoch," the voice said, and the ground itself seemed to bow. My spirit broke within me, for I knew it was the voice of the Lord, the one who formed Adam from dust and set the stars upon their courses. In terror and trembling I fell upon my face, yet his hand lifted me up, and his light covered me like a garment. From that day forward I walked no longer as one among men, but as one caught between two realms. His presence was with me as a shadow that never departs, heavy as a mountain, gentle as the wind. Every word I spoke, every step I took was marked by his gaze. The Eternal drew me apart from the multitude, teaching me in the silence of the fields and the solitude of the mountains. While others pursued the labor of their hands, I was given visions of what was and what was yet to come. The call of God was not merely a summons, it was a tearing away from the common path of men into the burning path of eternity. In those days, the generations of Adam multiplied, filling the earth with strength and pride. They sought dominion over fields and flocks. They raised altars of their own making, and they sang songs to gods of stone and silver. Yet I beheld the futility of their striving, for the Lord showed me the fleeting breath of all flesh. Kingdoms rise like grass in spring, but their crowns wither in the heat of judgment. Even as men boasted of their works, I knew that the end was already written in the tablets of heaven. It was given to me to see beyond the dust, to perceive the hand of the Almighty shaping history toward its appointed hour. My walk with God was not without fear, for the closer I drew near, the more I saw of my own smallness. His glory was like fire, consuming all pretense. Yet in his presence, I also tasted a love stronger than the grave. The voice that shakes mountains also whispered peace into my spirit. He did not call me to perish, but to witness, to carry the weight of revelations for generations not yet born. The burden was heavy, but his strength upheld me. My steps became his steps, and my breath carried the rhythm of eternity. It was then that I began to see visions, rivers of fire coursing through the heavens, thrones set in judgment, angels descending with swords of flame, and shadows rising from the abyss. My heart quaked within me, for I understood that I was being prepared not to live for myself, but to testify of the mysteries of the Most High. Men saw me as flesh and blood like them, but within I bore the voice of eternity. What no eye had seen, what no ear had heard, was laid upon me as a mantle, and I knew there would be no turning back. The Lord spoke again, saying, "Enoch, you shall walk with me, and I shall show you what is hidden. You shall see the end of days, and you shall testify before men and angels alike. For the time of man is but a shadow, and soon the heavens shall be shaken. Through you, generations shall know that I am the Lord of time, the first and the last." At those words I wept, for who was I to carry such a burden? Yet he strengthened me, and the fire of his Spirit sealed my calling. From that moment, the world appeared as a fading mist. Its pleasures could not bind me. Its treasures could not tempt me. For I had tasted the nearness of God, and every other pursuit was ashes in comparison. I walked in fields while the heavens thundered above me. I sat among men while my spirit soared among angels. My life was no longer mine. It belonged to the Eternal who called me forth. The path ahead was shrouded in mystery, yet my heart burned with the certainty that I was chosen to witness the unfolding of the end. Thus began my journey, not by the will of man, but by the decree of the Eternal. The call of God set me apart, tore me from the fleeting days of flesh, and bound me to the destiny of the heavens. I, Enoch, testify before you. The hand of the Almighty rests upon me, and what he has shown me shall not pass away. For the Lord does not speak in vain, nor does he call without purpose. My walk with God was the beginning of a revelation that would unveil the fate of all creation, from the first breath to the last trumpet. The night was still, and the earth slept beneath the veil of darkness, but my spirit was restless, stirred by a weight I could not name. As I lifted my eyes to the heavens, suddenly they were torn open like a curtain of fire and crystal. The firmament itself seemed to shatter, and I beheld a realm beyond all realms, where the throne of the Eternal cast rivers of light across the endless sky. My heart faltered within me, for I was no longer bound to the soil of men. I was standing at the threshold of eternity. I saw legions of angels arrayed in holiness, their voices rising like thunderous waters, praising the One seated above the heavens. Their faces shone with radiance brighter than the morning sun, and their wings moved like the sound of rushing winds. Yet even as they worshipped, my eyes were drawn beyond, to those who had fallen. They once stood among the holy host, but pride had cast them down. Their light was dimmed, their glory stripped, and in their eyes burned sorrow mingled with unending rage. Between the faithful and the fallen stretched a gulf unbridgeable, a division that time itself could never mend. It was shown to me that this separation would remain until the end of days, when judgment would be executed with fire. And I, beholding this eternal divide, understood that all creation stands under the same choice: to bow before the throne of the Eternal, or to follow the path of rebellion into shadow. In the heavens, nothing is hidden. In the earth, no heart escapes his gaze. The voice of the Lord spoke within me. See, Enoch, the cycle of time draws near its completion. The days of man are like a shadow upon the ground, fleeting and fragile. What is now shall not remain, for the heavens themselves shall tremble, and the order of the stars shall be shaken. As he spoke, I saw the sun darken, the moon turn to blood, and the stars fall like sparks from a dying flame. The very foundations of the cosmos trembled before his word. I heard the sound of trumpets, distant yet fierce, echoing across the expanse of creation. They were not of human origin, but voices of the heavens themselves proclaiming that the day of reckoning was approaching. Though far off, they shook me to my core, for I knew they were the first whispers of the final hour. Men slept in their fields, kings rested upon their thrones, but already the alarm of eternity was sounding. None would be able to silence it when the appointed time came. My spirit was caught between awe and terror, for the vision was overwhelming. The glory of the righteous angels filled me with hope, yet the sight of the fallen struck my soul with dread. I realized then that the story of creation was not merely about earth and man, but about a conflict that stretched across the heavens themselves. Humanity lived unaware, blind beneath the stars, while above them raged a division as ancient as time itself. I lifted my hands, trembling, and asked within my soul, Lord, what is man, that you show him such things? Why open the heavens before one made of dust? And the answer came like thunder wrapped in gentleness, because the dust shall rise again, and man shall stand among the stars. The fate of heaven and earth is bound together, and through you, Enoch, generations shall know the truth. These words etched themselves into my very being, branding my heart with the seal of testimony. As the vision unfolded, I saw the earth below as a fragile speck suspended in endless night. Its mountains, rivers, and seas appeared small beneath the vastness of eternity, yet the eyes of the Eternal were fixed upon it with unshakable purpose. The heavens are infinite, and yet he has chosen to write his story within the lives of men. And I knew then, the heavens opened not for my sake alone, but for all who would come after me, to understand that the God of eternity rules both the stars and the dust. Thus the heavens closed again, like gates of crystal folding shut, and the night returned in silence. But I was not the same. My eyes had seen the great divide, my ears had heard the herald of trumpets, and my soul carried the weight of a truth too vast for mortal lips. The vision of the open heavens marked me forever, for I understood. Time itself is racing toward its appointed end, and the day of the Lord is nearer than men dare believe. The visions did not cease, for the hand of the Eternal pressed upon me with greater weight. One night, while I was taken in spirit beyond the earth, I beheld those who had descended from the heavens. They were once clothed in brilliance, guardians of the holy order, but now their countenances were marred with sorrow and fury. These were the watchers who abandoned their place in the heights to mingle with the daughters of men. Their presence was dreadful, for glory and corruption were intermingled in their faces. They gathered before me, their voices like the clash of thunder and broken iron. Their eyes burned with a fire that was not holy, yet not fully quenched. They pleaded with me, saying, "Enoch, righteous scribe, intercede for us before the Most High. Entreat him to lift our sentence, for we have fallen, and the abyss awaits." Their words shook me, for they spoke not as mortals, but as beings who once stood before the throne itself. My heart was torn within me, for their sorrow was deep and their shame undeniable. They had defiled themselves, yet they still longed for mercy. I listened as their cries rose like smoke, filling the night with grief. They called upon their leader, Azazel, and upon Shemyaza, who led them into rebellion, and each name echoed like a wound carved into eternity. They sought hope, but the heavens were silent, for judgment had already gone forth. The Eternal spoke to me in that moment, saying, "Write their petition, Enoch, and declare my answer. For though they beg for intercession, the decree is sealed. Their offspring shall perish, their dominion shall end, and they shall be bound in chains until the day of judgment. The pit shall swallow them, and no prayer shall release them." These words fell like hammer and flame, and I trembled, for the justice of the Almighty cannot be overturned. I returned their petition in sorrow, for my hands could not alter what the Eternal had spoken. Their faces darkened, their voices fell silent, and despair covered them like a shroud. I saw in their eyes the memory of what they once were, sons of heaven radiant and strong, now destined to be chained in darkness. And I understood then, rebellion against the Almighty leads only to ruin, whether angel or man. Still, I was commanded to listen, so that their story would be known to generations. For men would wonder how corruption first entered the earth, and through this testimony they would learn. It was not the will of the Creator, but the rebellion of the Watchers that brought violence, blood, and ruin upon the world. Their fall was a warning written in fire for every soul who would exalt itself against the Eternal. As they departed, I saw shadows gathering beneath their feet, the abyss calling to them with silent hunger. Their time was short, their fate sealed, their cries unanswered. They vanished into the gloom, and the earth itself seemed to sigh beneath their corruption. In that moment I realized I was not merely a witness of heaven's glory, but of its judgment. Both light and darkness were entrusted to my vision, for the testimony of the end must hold both. My spirit was heavy, for the sorrow of the fallen clung to me like a weight. Yet even in their grief, the righteousness of God shone brighter. For mercy belongs to the repentant, but those who trample the order of heaven shall find no escape. The Watchers had chosen rebellion, and their chains were the fruit of their choice. What they sought from me was not mine to give, for only the Eternal holds the keys of mercy and wrath. Thus I, Enoch, bore witness to the meeting of the fallen. Their cries still echo within me, not as hope, but as warning. For what happened to them will happen to every proud heart that defies the order of the Most High. The abyss awaits the rebellious, but the righteous shall shine like the stars. And I knew then that the visions had only begun, for greater mysteries and heavier judgments were yet to be revealed to me. When the Watchers descended and defiled themselves with the daughters of men, the earth was shaken by their corruption. From their union came beings not ordained by the Creator, mighty in stature, fierce in strength, yet twisted in spirit. They were called giants, and their presence darkened the world. I saw them in vision, vast in height, their feet breaking the soil, their hands tearing the fruits of the earth without restraint. Where they walked, fear followed, and where they stood, nothing could resist their dominion. They devoured the labor of mankind, and when the fields yielded no more, They turned their hunger against flesh and blood. Men, beasts, and even their own kind became prey beneath their insatiable appetite. Blood stained the rivers, and cries of the innocent rose like incense before the throne of the Eternal. The earth groaned beneath their violence, and creation itself cried for deliverance. For these beings were not part of the divine order. They were the corruption of it, and their existence could not endure. I was shown that their fathers, the Watchers, had sought to exalt themselves by mixing the heavenly with the earthly. But instead of glory, they brought forth abomination. The giants were a shadow of rebellion made flesh, a reminder that when boundaries set by the Most High are broken, only chaos is born. Their hearts were set against God, for they inherited the pride of their fathers and magnified it with cruelty upon the weak. I beheld their wars, greater than the strife of nations. Brother slew brother, clans devoured clans, and their footsteps crushed the dwellings of men. Spears and stones could not bring them down, and the people cried out in despair. Yet even as the world trembled, the decree of the Eternal was already sealed. He would not allow corruption to swallow his creation, nor would the blood of the innocent go unanswered. Then the Lord said unto me, Their days are numbered. I will send waters upon the earth, and with the flood I shall wash away their memory. The giants shall perish, their bodies broken, their spirits bound in the depths until the day of judgment. Only that which I have chosen shall remain, for I preserve a seed of righteousness. At his words I saw the flood rising in my vision, covering mountains, drowning the mighty, silencing the roar of giants who once shook the earth. The Watchers wept for their children, but no tears could undo their rebellion. Their offspring had no place in the order of heaven or earth, and their destruction was ordained. For the Eternal is just, and he will not allow impurity to reign where he has breathed life. Thus the giants, though mighty in stature, were powerless before the decree of God. Their downfall was not by the strength of men, but by the hand of the Creator himself. The earth trembled as the floodwaters rose, and I saw their cries drowned beneath the roaring sea. Their towers, their weapons, their songs of pride, all vanished into silence. And when the waters receded, only memory remained, a scar upon the history of mankind. Yet their spirits did not perish, for they were cast into the abyss, chained until the day when the final judgment shall release them to their eternal fate. I understood then the secret of the giants. They were the offspring of rebellion, the harvest of pride, the fruit of angels who left their place. They walked in strength for a season, but their end was destruction. Their rise was swift, but their fall eternal. Men marveled at their power, but the Lord alone reigns forever. In the end, their story was not of greatness, but of warning, written as a shadow upon the earth. Thus I, Enoch, testify. The corruption of the Watchers brought forth giants, but the justice of the Eternal swept them away. Their memory lingers only to teach men that no power born of rebellion shall stand. For the Lord of heaven and earth is righteous, and his decrees are unshakable. I beheld their fall, and I knew, the judgment of God is certain, and no creature can escape his hand. I was carried away by the hand of the Eternal, and the angels of light bore me upon their wings to a place no mortal should see. We descended beyond the lands of men, past the mountains that touch the clouds, into caverns where the light of the sun cannot reach. There, in depths darker than the grave, I was shown the dwelling of those who had fallen. The abyss stretched out like an endless sea of shadows, its walls burning with fire that gave no warmth, only torment. The air itself groaned, filled with the sound of chains clashing against stone. There I beheld the Watchers, bound with fetters of flame. Their wings, once radiant, were scorched and torn, their faces marked with despair. Some hung in silence, their eyes hollow, while others cried out with voices like thunder smothered by water. Their torment was unending, for they awaited a judgment more terrible than their chains. Their leader, Azazel, was cast deeper still, bound in utter darkness, his name cursed by heaven and earth alike. Around him, the shadows thickened, as if creation itself recoiled from his corruption. The angels who guided me spoke. These are they who left their stations, who corrupted flesh and defied the order of the Most High. Their sentence is sealed, and here they remain until the great day. No prayer will deliver them, no intercession will alter their fate. At their words I trembled, for I understood that even the might of heaven cannot resist the decree of the Eternal. His justice is a fire that consumes every rebellion, whether of angels or of men. I looked deeper and saw chambers within the abyss, caverns filled with silence heavier than any sound. There dwelt the spirits of the giants, the offspring of corruption. Their bodies perished in the flood, but their souls wandered restless and vile, bringing fear and violence upon the earth. These were the spirits that whisper in darkness, stirring men to bloodshed, haunting them with thoughts not their own. And I realized, the violence of the earth is not born only of flesh, but also of shadows that linger from ancient rebellion. The abyss itself seemed alive, pulsing with hatred, gnashing with hunger. Flames licked the walls like serpents, yet gave no light of hope. Rivers of fire flowed downward into pits without end, and from those pits rose smoke blacker than midnight. The cries of the imprisoned watchers echoed within me, and I heard them calling out my name again, not in petition but in despair, knowing their fate was irreversible. I turned my face away, for the weight of their ruin was unbearable. One of the holy angels said to me, "Enoch, remember what you have seen. Speak it to men, that they may fear the Lord and not walk in the path of these. For if the sons of heaven could fall, how much more shall men perish if they despise the commandments of the Almighty? Tell them, the abyss is real, and its chains are not broken." These words burned into me like fire, and I knew my mission was not for myself, but for every soul that still walked the earth. I understood then the fullness of justice. Mercy is for the repentant, but wrath awaits the rebellious. The watchers had crossed a boundary that could not be undone, and their chains were the testimony of God's righteousness. What I saw was not only their judgment, but a shadow of the end to come, when all who defy the Eternal shall be brought low. The abyss is not a myth nor a symbol. It is a place prepared, a reality written in the order of creation. As we ascended from the depths, the cries of the imprisoned faded, but the weight of their fate remained upon my soul. Never again could I look upon the earth with the same eyes, for beneath its surface I had seen the judgment of heaven already at work. Every sin, every rebellion, every proud heart that lifts itself against the Eternal is but a step toward that abyss. The vision was a warning carved into my spirit. Thus I, Enoch, bear witness to the journey through the abyss. I have seen the chains of the watchers, I have heard the cries of their despair, and I testify that the justice of God does not sleep. The abyss awaits the rebellious, but the righteous are guarded by his light. And as I rose from those depths, I knew. Greater revelations yet awaited me, for the book of memory was about to be opened before my eyes. I was lifted from the shadows of the abyss, and the holy angels brought me into a place radiant with light. There was no sun, nor moon, nor stars, yet the brilliance surpassed them all, for it came from the presence of the Eternal himself. In that chamber of fire and crystal, I was given a vision unlike any other. A book was placed before me, vast as the sky, yet it rested upon my hands as though made for me alone. Its pages glowed with living flame, and its letters burned with the breath of God. The angel said to me, "Behold the book of memory, written by the hand of heaven. In it are inscribed all the deeds of men and angels, every thought of the heart, every secret hidden in darkness. Nothing escapes its record, for the eyes of the Eternal behold all." As I gazed upon its pages, I saw names written like stars, shining with glory, the righteous whose faith had been counted before God. But I also saw names veiled in shadow, fading into darkness, the wicked whose deeds condemned them. I trembled, for I understood that no word spoken, no action taken, is ever lost. The laughter of the just, the tears of the oppressed, the cries of the innocent, all were etched into that book. Likewise the schemes of the wicked, the lies of kings, the blood of the violent, all were written, preserved for the day of judgment. My hands shook as I touched its pages, for I felt the weight of eternity pressing upon me. This was no ordinary record. It was the testimony of creation itself. Then the voice of the Lord came forth. Enoch, scribe of righteousness, know that nothing is forgotten. I see the deeds of men, and I measure their hearts. On the appointed day this book shall be opened before heaven and earth, and every soul shall be judged according to what is written. The righteous shall shine like the sun, but the wicked shall be cast into darkness. These words thundered through my spirit, and I fell upon my face in awe and fear. As I looked again, I saw visions flowing from the pages like rivers of fire. I beheld the lives of men as though they were threads woven into a vast tapestry. Some threads gleamed with light, bound together in harmony, while others were tangled and blackened, cut short before their time. Each life mattered, each choice carried weight, for the Eternal had inscribed them all with his own hand. Nothing in creation was without meaning. The angel turned the pages, and I saw generations rising and falling, kings enthroned and dethroned, nations built and destroyed. Yet above it all was the hand of the Most High, guiding history toward his purpose. The book revealed not only the past, but the future, the destinies of those who had not yet been born. My spirit quaked, for I realized I was beholding the map of time itself, sealed by the decree of the Eternal. I asked in trembling, Lord, who can stand when such a book is opened? Who among men is righteous enough to endure? And the voice answered, those who walk in my ways, those who turn from evil and seek my face. For I am merciful to the repentant, but my justice shall not fail against the rebellious. Tell this to the generations. Live as though every breath is written, for indeed it is. At these words, the fire of conviction burned within me, and I knew I must proclaim it. The book of memory was then sealed before my eyes, its light folding upon itself until it vanished into the hand of the angel. Yet the weight of it remained within me, heavier than any burden of flesh. I walked as one carrying the judgment of nations, for I knew what was to come. When the heavens are shaken and the dead are raised, that book shall be opened, and none shall escape its testimony. Thus I, Enoch, bear witness. Every deed of man is remembered, every secret is written, and every heart is weighed. The book of memory stands as a witness against the wicked and as a crown for the just. I saw it with my own eyes, and I testify that the day is near when it shall be opened before all creation. And as the vision faded, I heard the rushing of waters, and I knew the next revelation would be of a flood that would cover the earth. The vision of the book of memory had scarcely faded when the heavens opened again before me. I was lifted high above the earth, and what I beheld made my heart tremble. I saw the waters of the deep rising, bursting forth from their hidden places, and the fountains of heaven pouring down in torrents. Mountains vanished beneath waves, valleys drowned in darkness, and the earth itself groaned as though it were being undone. The flood surged like a living beast, swallowing everything in its path. The angel who stood beside me spoke, Behold, Enoch, the judgment decreed against this generation, for the hearts of men are corrupt, their ways filled with violence, their thoughts only evil continually. They have defiled the earth with blood, and their cries reach to heaven. Therefore the Most High will wash the earth with waters, cleansing it from all corruption. This is his decree, and it shall not fail. His words pierced me, for I had seen with my own eyes the wickedness of men. Their hands shed blood without remorse, their lips spoke lies without shame, and their hearts were set upon idols of stone and vanity. As I looked closer, I saw men laughing, drinking, and mocking the warnings of the righteous. They built their houses as though they would stand forever. They sang songs as though no judgment was near, yet the flood was already rising against them. Their blindness was their ruin, for they could not discern the approaching wrath. The earth was filled with their pride, but the heavens had already written their end. Then my eyes were opened to a man set apart. His name was Noah, and the favor of the Eternal rested upon him. I saw him building an ark of great size, wood upon wood, plank upon plank, as the Lord had commanded. Men mocked him, calling him a fool, for rain had not yet fallen from the skies. Yet Noah obeyed, his hands steady, his heart faithful, for he knew that the word of God is never spoken in vain. His work was not in vain labor, but the vessel of salvation for the seed of the righteous. The ark rose before me as a beacon of mercy in the midst of wrath. I saw the animals of every kind being gathered, pairs led by an unseen hand finding their place within its walls. I saw Noah's family entering, chosen to preserve life through the storm. And I understood then that even in judgment, the Eternal remembers his covenant. He does not destroy without leaving a seed, a remnant through which his purposes continue. The flood was terror, but within it shone the mercy of God. As the waters rose in my vision, the laughter of the wicked turned into screams. They ran to the mountains, clinging to trees, crying out for mercy, but the gates of the ark were shut, and the hand of God had sealed them. None could enter, for the appointed time had passed. I saw kings swept away with peasants, giants drowned with the weak, the proud silenced with the humble. Judgment shows no partiality, for the decree of the Eternal weighs all alike. The earth shook as the waters covered even the highest peaks. The sky itself seemed to collapse, pouring forth judgment without measure. The cries of the world rose for a moment, then were silenced by the roar of the flood. All flesh perished, save for those whom the Lord had preserved within the ark. The world of that generation was gone, erased as a man wipes clean a slate. Only Noah remained, a testimony of faith and obedience in the midst of wrath. I wept as I saw these things, for the destruction was great, yet I also rejoiced, for the mercy of God was greater still. The ark was not only salvation from waters, but a sign of the Eternal's promise, that he would not utterly forsake the works of his hands. Through Noah a new beginning would rise, and the purposes of God would move forward, even as the memory of the wicked was washed away. Thus I, Enoch, bear witness to the prophecy of the flood. I saw its terror and its mercy, its judgment and its hope. For the Eternal is both righteous and compassionate, destroying corruption yet preserving the seed of faith. And as the waters of my vision receded, I beheld fire in the distance, brighter and more dreadful than the flood. And I knew I was about to stand before the throne of the Eternal himself. I was carried beyond the flood, beyond the shadow of waters, into a place no tongue can fully describe. There, at the height of creation, I beheld the throne of the Eternal. It was set upon flames of living fire, radiant and pure, brighter than 1,000 suns. Rivers of fire poured forth from beneath it, flowing in endless streams, consuming all impurity, yet giving life to all that is holy. My spirit trembled, for I stood in the very court of the Most High, where no mortal may stand unless summoned. Around the throne, millions of angels stood in perfect order, their voices rising in unceasing praise. Their song was like thunder, yet also like the sound of waters flowing in peace. They bowed before him whose face was a mystery, whose glory no eye can endure. Their wings veiled their gaze, for even the pure cannot bear the fullness of his light. Holiness radiated from him like fire, and time itself seemed to dissolve in his presence. I beheld the Ancient of Days, clothed in garments whiter than snow, with hair like pure wool. His throne blazed with flames, and wheels of fire turned beneath it. Before him stood books vast and countless, their pages alive with light. I knew at once these were the records of heaven, containing the deeds of all creation. The angels opened them one by one, and I saw written therein the secrets of kings and the whispers of beggars alike. Nothing was hidden, nothing escaped his gaze. The voice of the Eternal thundered, not in anger alone, but in unshakable authority. The time of judgment has come. The wicked shall fall, the righteous shall rise, and every heart shall be weighed in the balance of my throne. His words split the heavens, and the earth below shuddered, as though his voice shook its very foundations. No mountain could stand, no sea remain calm before his decree. The cosmos itself seemed to bend beneath the weight of his word. I saw the kings of the earth brought before him, their crowns stripped away, their glory crumbling like dust. Mighty men who ruled over nations now stood trembling, their lips unable to speak. The proud were humbled, the arrogant brought low, and the weak who trusted in him were lifted up. Judgment flowed from his throne like a river, separating light from darkness, truth from falsehood, life from death. None could stand except those who had walked in his ways. The angels who stood beside me whispered, "This is the end that awaits all creation." Every secret deed, every hidden thought shall be laid bare. The throne of fire is not moved, and his justice shall not fail. Their voices carried both awe and dread, and I felt the weight of eternity pressing upon me. For the throne was not only terror to the wicked, it was the refuge of the righteous, the place where mercy and justice meet. The rivers of fire flowed outward, consuming all that was corrupt. The idols of men melted like wax, the works of their hands crumbled to ash, thrones, temples, and empires fell, for nothing built on rebellion could withstand the fire of the Eternal. Yet within the blaze, I saw the righteous shining, clothed not in their own strength, but in the light of his glory. They stood unburned, untouched, their faces radiant with peace. I fell to my face, for my soul could not endure the sight. The fire burned through every thought, every intention, revealing even the hidden corners of my heart. And I knew that no man is righteous by his own strength, but only by the mercy of the Eternal who calls and preserves. Before his throne, all boasting is silence, all pride is ashes, all glory belongs to him alone. Thus I, Enoch, testify, I have seen the throne of fire, the court of eternity, the judgment of the Almighty. His justice is unshakable, his holiness unsearchable, his throne everlasting. The end is certain, for it has already been decreed in the fire of his presence. And as the vision faded, I beheld the earth once more, where kings strutted in their pride, and I knew their fate was sealed before that throne. After I beheld the throne of fire, my eyes were turned once more to the earth, and I saw the rulers of nations, the kings who exalted themselves above the people, above the laws of heaven, above even the fear of the Most High. They sat upon thrones of gold and silver, clothed in garments of scarlet, and their crowns gleamed with jewels stolen from the sweat of the poor. Their cities were filled with feasting, their courts with flatterers, and their words with pride. They declared themselves mighty, but before the Eternal they were as grass, ready to wither beneath the heat of his wrath. I saw them gather together, mighty in number, strong in armies, their banners lifted against the heavens. Their pride was great, for they believed the earth belonged to them, and that no hand could unseat them from their thrones. They built palaces as though they would stand forever, and monuments to their names as though their memory could outlive time itself. But the decree of the Lord had already gone forth, and their ruin was written in the book of memory. Then a voice came to me saying, Enoch, behold the fate of the kings of the earth. Though they raise themselves high, I shall bring them low. Though they call themselves gods, I shall show them they are but dust. Their crowns shall fall, their thrones shall crumble, and their names shall vanish like smoke upon the wind. And I looked, and I saw their kingdoms collapse one after another, as towers collapsing in the fire. The armies of the proud were scattered like chaff, their swords broken, their shields shattered. Nations that once ruled with iron were consumed in flame. The kings who oppressed the poor cried out for mercy, but no one heard them. Their wealth was scattered, their palaces overturned, their bodies thrown into the dust with no honor. Those who had called themselves masters of the earth were reduced to silence beneath the judgment of the Most High. I saw the earth itself rise against them. The ground trembled, mountains split, rivers flooded their lands, and storms swept away their armies. Creation, which they had abused and corrupted, turned against them in the hour of judgment. For the Lord had set boundaries, and they had broken them. He had given them stewardship, and they had turned it into tyranny. Now the very earth became their accuser, and the heavens testified against them. Among the ruins, the oppressed lifted their eyes to heaven and found justice. The cries of widows, the tears of orphans, the blood of the innocent, all had been recorded, and now the Eternal answered. The rulers who mocked the poor now begged for a drop of water, but none was given. The proud who sat upon high thrones now lay in chains, awaiting the fire prepared for the rebellious. The justice of the Eternal is slow to rise, but when it comes like a flood, and none can withstand it. The angel who stood by me said, Enoch, remember this vision. The glory of men is but a shadow. Kings are exalted for a season, but the Eternal rules forever. Those who trust in crowns and armies shall fall, but those who trust in the Lord shall shine in his kingdom. These words sank into my heart, for I had seen the truth written in fire. No power of man, no throne of earth, can stand before the judgment of God. I watched until every crown was cast down and every throne overturned. The monuments of kings lay in ruin, their names forgotten by those who once feared them. But the name of the Eternal endured, burning brighter than all the stars. The fate of the kings was sealed, not in glory, but in ashes, for their pride had lifted them high, only to cast them into the pit. Thus I, Enoch, testify. I have seen the fate of the kings of the earth. Their glory is fleeting, their power a breath, their reign a moment. But the Lord of hosts reigns forever, and his kingdom shall never end. And as the vision faded, I saw graves opening, the dead rising from the dust, and I knew that the next revelation would unveil the resurrection of all souls. The earth grew silent before my eyes, and then I beheld a vision unlike any I had seen before. Graves broke open, tombs split apart, and the dust of ages began to stir. From every corner of the world, the dead arose, summoned by a voice stronger than death itself. Bones clothed themselves with flesh, eyes opened where only darkness had dwelt, and the breath of life returned to those long forgotten. I trembled, for the resurrection had begun. I saw multitudes rising, countless as the sands of the sea. Some shone with brilliance like the stars of heaven, clothed in garments of light, their faces radiant with peace. These were the righteous, whose names were inscribed in the book of memory, whose faith endured even when the world mocked them. They ascended with joy, their voices like a song of victory, for death no longer held them. But I also saw others rise, not in glory, but in horror. Their faces were darkened, their bodies clothed in shadow, and chains of despair bound them. They were dragged toward the throne of fire, trembling as their deeds were laid bare. These were the ones who lived in pride, who shed blood without remorse, who turned from the commandments of the Most High. For them, resurrection was not deliverance, but judgment. The angel said to me, Enoch, behold the justice of God. As all men are born into death, so all shall be raised. The righteous to eternal life, the wicked to everlasting condemnation. None can escape, for the resurrection embraces every soul. This is the decree of the Eternal, unshakable as his throne. I wept, for the sight was dreadful and glorious at once. I saw kings rising beside slaves, the mighty beside the lowly. None were hidden, none exempt. The works of each were displayed like open scrolls before heaven. I heard the cries of the wicked, pleading for the mountains to cover them, for the seas to swallow them. But no hiding place remained. The day of resurrection revealed all, and no shadow could conceal the truth. The righteous stood in awe, their joy uncontainable, for they saw the fulfillment of every promise spoken from the beginning. They were welcomed into the light of the Eternal, their tears wiped away, their wounds healed. Death, their old enemy, was crushed beneath the feet of the Almighty. They were clothed in immortality, their voices lifted in praise, their inheritance secured forever. The wicked, however, were led away into darkness, bound for the fire prepared for the rebellious. Their pride was broken, their laughter silenced, their boasting reduced to nothing, for they had chosen their portion in life, and their portion followed them in death. Their resurrection was not unto joy but unto terror, not to glory but to everlasting shame. My soul quaked as I beheld these things, for the resurrection is both promise and warning. It is the hope of the righteous and the terror of the wicked. It is the great equalizer, where all men stand alike before the throne of God. None can bribe death, none can flee its call, and none can silence the voice that awakens the dust. Thus I, Enoch, testify, I have seen the resurrection of the dead. It is certain, it is universal, it is the decree of the Eternal. The righteous shall shine like the sun, the wicked shall fall into unending night, and the justice of God shall stand forever. And as the vision closed before me, I saw the heavens and the earth passing away and a new creation rising in glory. After the vision of the resurrection, I was shown something beyond terror, beyond judgment, beyond the end itself. My eyes beheld a horizon where all things had perished, and yet, from the ashes, a new dawn arose. The first heaven and the first earth had passed away. The seas dried, the mountains crumbled, the stars fell from their places. And then, in silence, I saw a new heaven unfold, pure and radiant, and a new earth emerge, adorned as a bride prepared for her beloved. It was as though creation itself was reborn, no longer stained with corruption, but clothed in eternal light. I beheld the dwelling of the Eternal descending like a city of crystal and fire, shining with the brilliance of every precious stone. Its walls glowed with jasper, its gates with pearl, its foundations with sapphire and emerald. A river of living water flowed from the throne of the Most High, clear as crystal, and on either side of it grew the tree of life, bearing fruit for the healing of the nations. The curse was gone, death no longer ruled, and pain was but a memory of the old world. Voices rose like the sound of countless waters, the righteous crying in joy. The dwelling of God is with men, and I saw that He, the Eternal, dwelt among His people. No veil, no temple, no separation remained. His light was their sun, His presence their dwelling, His word their song. The tears of generations were wiped away, the wounds of the faithful healed, and joy spread across creation like dawn after endless night. I saw the righteous walking in peace, clothed in garments of light, their faces radiant with eternal life. Children laughed without fear, elders stood renewed in strength, and no one was hungry, no one wept. The wolf lay beside the lamb, the lion with the ox, for the order of creation was restored. No shadow of violence remained, no cry of blood rose from the earth, for the Lord had made all things new. The angel said to me, "Enoch, this is the promise kept from the beginning. The garden once lost is restored, the tree once guarded is now given, the dwelling once hidden is revealed. The righteous shall inherit this land, and they shall reign with the Eternal forever. For the former things have passed away, and behold, all things are made new." These words sank into me like living fire, and I fell upon my face, weeping not with fear, but with joy. Yet even in glory, I remembered the visions of judgment, and my heart trembled. For I knew this new creation was not for all, but only for those whose names were found written in the book of memory. The wicked had no place in this city, no portion in this land. Their portion was the abyss, their inheritance the fire. And I understood, the promise of life is sure, but so too is the decree of wrath. The new earth is a crown, but only for those purified by the justice of the Eternal. I lifted my eyes and saw the nations walking in the light of God. Kings brought their honor into the city, yet no pride remained, no corruption entered. The gates were never shut, for night no longer existed. The sun and moon were no more, for the glory of the Eternal was the everlasting light. The song of creation filled the air, as though every stone, every tree, every river had found its voice. All things praised Him who sits upon the throne, for He had brought them into perfect harmony. In that vision I understood the mystery of time, that the end is not the final word, but the beginning of what was always promised. The old world was but a shadow, a fleeting image of what the Eternal had prepared. The new creation was not merely restoration, it was exaltation, perfection beyond imagination. What was lost in Adam was restored in glory, greater than the first dawn. For now man and God walk together forever. Thus I, Enoch, testify, I have seen the new heaven and the new earth. I have seen the river of life, the tree that heals, the city that shines with the glory of the Eternal. I testify that the end of corruption is the birth of eternal peace, and that those who endure shall inherit this promise. This is the hope that carried me through visions of terror and judgment, that beyond fire and flood, beyond death and the abyss, lies the dwelling of God with His people, and as I beheld its radiance I knew, the end is not the end, but the beginning without end. I, Enoch, have walked the path set before me by the Eternal, and I have borne witness to mysteries beyond the reach of mortal men. I have seen the heavens open, the throne of fire, the fall of angels, the rise of giants, the abyss of shadows, the book of memory, the flood of waters, the resurrection of the dead, and the dawn of the new creation. All these visions were not given for my sake alone, but for the generations to come, for you who hear my words. My journey was not of my choosing, but of the decree of the Most High who called me to walk with him. From the days of my youth the Lord placed his hand upon me, and I knew I was set apart. I walked among men, but my spirit dwelt with God. I was taken into realms beyond time, shown the secrets of heaven and the fate of earth. What I saw was both terror and glory, both judgment and mercy. And I testify now with all truth. The word of the Eternal shall not fail. Every vision I beheld shall be fulfilled in its appointed time. I saw the pride of men, and I saw their downfall. I saw kings lifted high, only to be cast into dust. I saw nations rise, only to vanish in fire. I saw the rebellious angels chained, the spirits of giants wandering in torment, the wicked consumed by judgment, and the righteous crowned with eternal life. I testify that justice belongs to the Eternal, and no hand can resist his will, for he alone is sovereign. He alone is the judge. He alone is the Lord of eternity. But I also saw his mercy, a mercy stronger than death, a covenant that endures through fire and flood. I saw Noah preserved as a seed of hope, the righteous remembered in the book of memory, the faithful shining like the sun in the age to come. I saw a new heaven and a new earth, where the Eternal himself dwells with his people. There is no greater promise, no greater gift than this, that he shall wipe away every tear, and death shall be no more. And yet, I say to you, the time of man is brief, and the day of the Lord comes swiftly. The trumpet will sound, the graves will open, the throne will be revealed, and every soul shall stand before the Eternal. The righteous shall rejoice, but the wicked shall tremble. This is not a tale to soothe, but a truth to awaken. For what I have seen is not far off. It draws near with every breath, every hour, every heartbeat of creation. Therefore, O generation of the earth, prepare your hearts. Walk not in the path of the proud, nor in the shadow of rebellion, but seek the face of the Eternal while there is yet time. Turn from violence, from lies, from idols of stone and flesh, and walk in the light of his word. For he is merciful to those who repent, but his fire consumes the unrepentant. The choice is set before every soul, life or death, light or darkness, eternity with him or eternity apart from him. I, Enoch, was taken so that I would not see death, for the Lord desired to show in me a sign of the age to come. But my testimony is not for myself, it is for you. Believe what I have spoken, for it was shown to me not by men, nor by angels alone, but by the Eternal himself. My words are not mine, but his, and the visions I have recorded will stand as a witness until the heavens and the earth are shaken. These are my final words. The end is certain, but so too is the promise of new life. The judgment is coming, but so also is the everlasting kingdom. Choose now where you will stand, for the time is short. I have seen the abyss, and I have seen the throne. I have seen the darkness of rebellion, and I have seen the light of the new creation. I urge you, prepare your soul, for the day of the Lord will come as fire. Thus I, Enoch, scribe of righteousness, testify before heaven and earth. I have walked with God, and he has shown me the end. I have seen, I have heard, I have borne witness. And now I leave these words to you, that you may know, and that you may choose. For the Eternal has spoken, and his word shall stand forever. The end has been revealed, but for the righteous, it is not the end. It is the beginning without end.